Taylor Force was an outstanding young American with a distinguished record of service at the military academy and then overseas. He was what every parent could hope their son could be. We're to make sure that the record that he put together is remembered by Americans and is a positive force for change in the world. That taxpayer dollars are no longer going to subsidize the murder of American citizens or Israeli citizens, and that the Palestinian people are no longer subsidized with American money in a leadership that encourages this kind of brutal murder with graduated payments for the more and worse mayhem that these terrorists wreak. So the Force family has my commitment, has all of our commitments, that we're going to do everything in our power to make this bill into a law, to commemorate Taylor's memory, and to ensure that his sacrifice is not forgotten and that it has a lasting positive legacy in the world.
All right, 24 now till the top of the hour. Very emotional, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. Now, he serves on the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. He served in Iraq himself, the 101st Airborne, and in Afghanistan with the Provincial Reconstruction Team. And also joining us is Stuart Force. Now, Stuart's son, Taylor, was a former U.S. Army officer, West Point graduate. He was part of Vanderbilt University, their tour group that was visiting Israel. I talked about this with Prime Minister Netanyahu last week. He was brutally stabbed and killed by a Palestinian terrorist. The Palestinian Authority leader, Mahmoud Abbas, and their Fatah faction praised the terrorists as a heroic martyr. By the way, Donald Trump is meeting with this guy on May 3rd, and the Palestinian Authority has never condemned the attack, a terrorist attack. Now, what I got into with the Prime Minister of Israel is the fact that the U.S. government gives about $700 million a year to the Palestinian Authority. And of that $700 million, they spend about $300 million. According to the Palestinian Authority's online budget, they shell out the same amount or that amount of money, $300 million a year, to the families of jihadists. They build in their town squares literally so-called works of art for the people that kill either Israelis or Americans. Now, the Taylor Force Act would cut off funding to the Palestinian Authority if they continue this policy. It is now the stated law of paying monetary rewards to terrorists and their surviving family members. Anyway, Senator Tom Cotton is back with us from Arkansas. Stuart Force is with us. It was his son, Taylor, who this legislation is designed and to honor. Welcome, both of you, to the program.
Good afternoon, Sean, and I appreciate so much you having me on. It's a great honor to speak with you.
I spoke at length with the Prime Minister of Israel about this very issue in light of the leader of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, is meeting with President Trump on May 3rd, and the Prime Minister of Israel was adamant that if there's any chance of peace, one, there's got to be a recognition of Israel's right to exist. Number two, stop paying monetary rewards to terrorists and their surviving family members. Doesn't that have to be a fundamental, basic starting point?
I would think so, Sean. I can't imagine negotiating with anybody about anything, knowing that they have laws that provide for killing your citizens. I cannot believe that you could start with that in effect. I think it's just when all the facts came out to us after we lost Taylor, and I heard and read what was going on, I was appalled that is going on in this day and age. The contract killing with an open-ended contract, I could not understand it. And
it's just, but you know why? Because it's not comprehensible. Because there's no sense behind this that American money is going to a group that kills Americans and Israelis, and they're rewarding the terrorists and their families. Because, that is insanity by definition, and it's got to end. By the way, I'm pretty certain I know President Trump pretty well. I think once he gets made aware of the magnitude of this, I think he's going to say no more money until you stop this.
I think that would be a first good step, and from everyone I've had the opportunity to speak with, I agree that they are more and more aware of how ludicrous the whole situation is and how you can't go forward with that in place. I hate that my wife and I and daughter have spoken to so many people that have been so concerned. We never in our lives imagined they didn't like anything would this happen to anyone in our family. But we agree it has to stop. It just cannot continue, and it's not a partisan issue. I tell people, and whether they're Democrat, liberal, independent, Republican, just the situation. It's not a party or belief. It's just not right.
You're right. It's not right.
Hey, Sean, this is Tom Cotton.
Hey, Senator.
If I could add, it's good to be on with you, as always, but it's a special honor to be on with you with Stuart. Mr. Force, it's good to hear your voice
Thank
again.
you, Senator Cotton. I appreciate what you're doing for this so much. I can't tell you.
Yes, and Sean, your instinct is right, because I've seen this repeatedly now, both in Congress and with Arkansans. Decent people cannot imagine that the facts at hand. They cannot imagine that we give the Palestinian Authority hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Palestinian Authority gives what's essentially bonus payments to the families of terrorists who commit the kind of heinous crime that happened to Taylor Force. When you bring that to them, sometimes you have to actually show them the laws, show them the Palestinian laws, show them the budgetary accounts, which are freely available in the open source domain, to get them to realize that this is in fact true, that this is not a myth. And I, for one, am confident once the president understands and appreciates what's happening with your tax dollars, that we can put an end to this and that we can pass the Taylor Force Act through the Congress for his signature. Sean, I'm so happy that you raised this with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I'm so grateful that Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke forcefully about the need to end.
Did you see us talking about this? Did you see the quotes of Abbas that he uses when he's at home versus what I know he'll probably lie to and tell the president?
No, Sean, it's so important that Prime Minister Netanyahu weighed in on this matter, that we have to stop what are essentially bounty payments to the families of dead terrorists. And his support removes one of the very last objections that anyone in the United States could have, because if the Prime Minister supports this legislation and this effort to try to stop U.S. taxpayer dollars from going to the families of dead Palestinian terrorists, I can't imagine any senator or congressman voting against our legislation. So I'm encouraging the president to raise this matter with President Abbas during their meeting next week and say very simply to him, look, if you don't stop this practice, you will no longer receive this money. We're not asking them for some pie-in-the-sky, laying down with the lamb scenario. We're not asking them to try to, eliminate all anti-Semitic feelings from their society. We're asking them to do something within their control. Stop taking our money and giving it to the families of dead terrorists if you want to keep our money.
Have you gotten any Democratic support, Senator?
A lot of Democrats have been supportive, but quietly. One reason why we couldn't pass this legislation in previous years is that the Obama administration plainly did not support it, did not want it coming to the floor, and Democratic senators did not want to vote on it. But with President Trump in the White House, who I believe will support the legislation, with the endorsement of Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think it's a horse of a different color, and I suspect that we will be able to pass this.
What about Chuck Schumer? Have you ever talked to Chuck Schumer about it?
I haven't personally talked to him about it, but Senator Schumer likes to prevent his caucus from having to take votes on things that might be tough for them. Again, it's hard for me to imagine anybody seeing this as tough, but ultimately it's Mitch McConnell that schedules the floor, and Senator McConnell can bring this to the floor with the president's support, now with the endorsement of the prime minister as well. I think you'd see a large and bipartisan vote if we have a vote on the floor.
Let me ask you this. Do they have confirmed themselves that this is actual law under the Palestinian Authority, correct? They must pay the families of terrorists and terrorists that survive. It's in black and white. It's Palestinian Authority and law. And the more heinous the attack and crime, the bloodier it is, the more money the families receive. It is a straight incentive for terrorists to kill innocent civilians like Taylor Force to try to make sure their family is cared for. Yeah. Mr. Force, Stuart Force, tell us about your son, Taylor.
Oh, gosh. Your program's not long enough, Sean, for me to tell you all about Taylor.
I believe it.
But we were just very fortunate that we have two good kids, and he, at an early age, decided that West Point would be a goal. He went to New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell, where people like Roger Staubach had gone to school, and in their efforts to obtain appointments to the various service academies, and it was a good academic and pre-military background, and he enjoyed, well, I guess you'd have to say mostly endured his 4 years at West Point, because it's quite a grueling regimen that they go through. But my father, his grandfather, had graduated in 1947, and so he had an ideal and an idea of what to expect, and he was excited. And when he graduated, he went to Field Artillery and to serve the two tours, a year in Iraq and 9 months in Afghanistan. And I would want to mention one thing. I know people have a tendency to use the word hero, and Taylor was a very modest and humble person, even though he achieved a lot. But he always cringed when somebody would call him a hero. Well, he felt the real heroes were those that were wounded or gave their lives.
Yeah, but he was willing to risk his, so he fits in that category. It's the same thing to me in many ways. It's not the same thing. I mean, anybody that's willing to risk it, that is a level of heroism and courage.
He viewed himself as a patriot more than a hero, Sean, but it was something he felt very strongly about, being there for his men, and it honestly wasn't about him. And it's just a tragedy that situations like this happen. It takes so many promising young people, not only Americans but Israelis and other visitors to Israel in a situation like this. It's a shame, and we're incredulous about the whole.
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say on behalf of so many people, I'm so sorry, Mr. for your loss, your son Taylor, and I truly, send a sympathy of a very sympathetic audience here, and we want to wish you and your family the very, very best. And so sorry you have to go through this. And Senator Cotton, thank you for what you're doing on this. And I know you're fighting the good fight every day. Is that health care bill in the House going to work through the Senate and get done, you think?
Sean, over the last few weeks, I've decided not to hazard guesses about what's going to happen on the floor of the House. But whatever happens, I want to make sure that we pass legislation that repeals Obamacare and provides all Americans with affordable and quality insurance, no exceptions and no excuses.
Do you like the changes that the Freedom Caucus was able to get?
I haven't seen the text, but from the reports I've seen and my conversations with some of my friends there, they're moving in the right direction. Obviously, the Senate will take up any bill that comes here and put our own stamp on it. But the ultimate goal that we share with those in the House is making sure that insurance is affordable for everyone, no matter how you get your insurance.
Yeah. Mr. Force, thank you so much for being with us. You're in our thoughts and prayers. Your son was indeed a hero. God bless you and your family. I know how hard that must be for you every day. This insanity of paying money to the Palestinian Authority so they can shell it out to the families and jihadists and their survivors is insanity. And I'm going to make sure in the next interview with President Trump that I ask him about this. Thank you so much for being with us. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. All right, quick break, right back. News roundup, information overload, and your call straight ahead.